You would best believe that once I finished Clown in a Cornfield 2, I immediately placed an order at my local Barnes & Noble for the third one, and I managed to get the last copy. No big deal. I mentioned in my review of the second one that the first Clown in a Cornfield feels a lot like Scream, and the second Clown in a Cornfield feels something more akin to The Purge. And if I had to categorize this one, this is the one where Quinn Maybrook goes full Liam Neeson in the 2009 major motion picture Taken. She channels her inner Sarah Connor and takes her all clowns must die revenge mission on the road. There's not a whole lot going on in these books plot-wise. They're really pretty simple, so I'm going to stop the summary there because it would be really easy to spoil it, and I don't want to spoil it because I want you to read these books. Tonally, this book felt like a departure from the first two. It introduces new characters, and it introduces new locations, and it broadens and develops the clown movement and theology that gets established in the first and second books. As each book progresses, we learn more and more about the clown movement. And in this one, the big red nose finally comes off, and we see a much wider perspective on the forces at work and their underlying motivations beyond a cornfield full of dead teenagers. I really commend Adam Cesare for being able to take a fairly straightforward teen slasher plot and develop it into something with more breadth and depth than we would have expected, and include some pretty biting commentary on myriad topics. As far as the pacing in this book compared to the first two, this one is much slower, as with the new characters, it takes more time to introduce them and spend time building the interpersonal relationships between Quinn and the new characters and each other, and those characters to their new location. That's not to say it isn't full of shocking and gruesome moments, it's just a little more spread out than the previous two. I did wish that there was a hair more action going on here, but the slow burn that we get as we inevitably ride towards our clown cataclysm more than makes up for the wait. The destination is definitely worth the journey. I liked the handful of new characters that were introduced, and I understood pretty readily how they were important to the new world and the new story that we were developing, but I wished that more of the characters from the first two carried over into this third one. Cole, Rust, Jerry, pretty much any of them would have been good. Besides Quinn and the main antagonist, it's pretty much entirely new characters, and that wasn't as satisfying for me, and also the change of location just didn't hit, I think, the way that it was intended to. I missed the characters and the locations that we already know. And that's the biggest part that kept this book from feeling like a proper sequel to me. I didn't think the continuity with the first two was very strong. This almost felt like it should have been Clown in a Cornfield 4 instead of 3 because I wanted more closure from the actions of the first two books. What happens in this one is really fun, but I don't know that I was ready for this based on the events of the second one. And that's really my only gripe with this book. It's written with style and aplomb, and it held my attention the whole 2 days that it took me to read it. And for the most part, I really like the characters in this series and the locations, and I enjoy spending time in this world, even if maybe the characters don't. If you're a fan of horror, and specifically slashers, I think Clown in a Cornfield is pretty hard to beat. I highly recommend it. But they are very dependent on one another for linear storytelling, so make sure you start with the first one. I think Clown in a Cornfield 3 is a great book, but if this was the third one, I wanted a 2.5. Take me back to Kettle Springs, Adam Cesare. Take me back. 4 out of 5 hammers.